Welcome, everybody. Good evening. So lovely to be with you. And so I want everyone to listen up because the schedule is going to change. I'm going to invite us all to practice flexibility of our consciousness, flexibility of ego, and patience. I'm practicing it myself. So starting next week, so that will be November 13th, 2022. Satsang will be at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Meditation will be at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And starting this week, Wednesday the 9th, the Kundalini group is going to be at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So I had some big changes come up in my life. Basically, my wife got a really great job, her dream job back in Colorado. And so all of a sudden we hurried up and moved back to Colorado. So I woke up this morning and I went outside and I asked my wife, what is all this white stuff all over my car? What is this? And she came out and she looked, she thought, what could it be? Like, what's all over the car? And it was frost. And where we were living before, for the last 6 months, that's all we lasted. We didn't have frost. It was nice and warm and sunny. And anyways, my wife wanted to bring me back to, to the cold. Nevertheless, I'm being flexible with her. I put her through a really difficult year last year with me being sick with long COVID, and I just listened to my girls and did what they wanted. So I'm back in Colorado. So those of you on the East Coast, I apologize. Those of you in the South, I apologize. Life just brought me back to Durango, and it's a little bit of a vortex here in Durango. It's hard to live here, and it's hard to leave. And once you leave, oftentimes you get sucked back. It's a really magical place for sure. But I drove in. I drove a big moving truck here. I don't even know when it was. Yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday morning. Maybe it was 2 days ago. I can't remember. But in a big snowstorm, and then dealing with that. And then later today, I'm on a bike ride and getting a sunburn. So such is life in the Southwest. So again, I apologize for those of you who are excited about me living on the East Coast, but life happens. So take note of the schedule. The best place to look will be Facebook. I'll keep all the updates there. But going forward, basically it's pretty much the old schedule that we used to have. So there's a time change, of course. If you're here, you made it. I don't know if the Europeans already had theirs or if it's later, but just everyone focus on that till we all get rebalanced again. And we also have some holidays coming up too. Okay, I think I did all the announcements, and why don't we close our eyes? And I invite you just to feel deeply into your belly, your Hara, and just noticing in this moment. Is there tension there? Is there tightness? Is there relaxation or peace? Are you connected with the energy of the earth? The earth provides a very warm, profound sense of equanimity, a quiet, warm sense of equanimity. So I invite you to see if you can join me in this. As you breathe in and breathe out, inviting all of your awareness to be in your lower abdomen, in the hips, the pelvis. And often this is a space where we hold unconscious tension. And so if that's you, I invite you to relax there. It's deepening and melting. And surrendering. To this quiet presence of the Absolute. Just noticing if you can let go and trust more fully here. I invite you to trust the same way like a tree has roots, and these roots grow down into the earth. Just imagining almost like a underground stream. You're a tree, your roots are just growing deeper into the earth and trusting. As you deepen, begin to connect to this very nurturing stream. Stream of equanimity and quietude. There's a profoundly healing quality here as well, if you open yourself to it. So it can be helpful to take a deep, full breath, maybe deep, unusually long exhale. Really allowing the body to surrender, to receive this space of equanimity. The supreme nurturing silence and depth. If you're really open and tuned in, you can feel this. It's like this underground stream. It's flowing up into the body. The further you allow yourself to be rooted into the earth, more fully, the earth will nurture you, support you. So softening and trusting. Gently smiling. Smiling at the fact that you don't have to do your life from the perspective of ego or will or push, or figuring out. There's a greater force here that can support you, heal you, awaken you. The greater force here that will walk the path for you if you allow it. So taking one more deep, full breath. Letting go further. And then if you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. I invite you with your eyes open just to look around the room and like the room that you're in, feeling the space, the peace, the silent, nurturing energy, presence. Feel it coming up from the floor, from the earth, to your feet, your legs, to your pelvis. You can look around in the Zoom room here, seeing each other's faces, Sangha, seeing this quiet radiance shining out of the faces of everyone present. And there's this question that comes up. I get this question in every different type of way. This question of, how do I live my realization? How do I be awake in the world? And often in spirituality, people think about having big experiences during meditation, and then when we come out of meditation, like I just said, there's something within us that comes out of meditation and immediately identifies with egoic consciousness. And if we want to live our realization, we cannot re-identify with egoic consciousness. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to live realization, to live the truth and simultaneously be fully identified with ego. And so then the question becomes, well, how do I actually live the realization? So most people they think of being realized as having some type of experience. And let's just say this is true. And so let's just imagine it means we're connected to our spiritual experience in every moment. We're identified with our spiritual experience in every moment. Most people would think this is what living a lived realization is. And I could argue with that a little bit, but let's just roll with that just for right now. Let's keep it simple here. And so in order to be connected to your spiritual experience in every moment, we have to be connected to the subtle energetic body. We have to be awake in the subtle energetic body. Now, again, most of us in meditation, we are awake to this body. But as soon as we step out of meditation, we are no longer awake to it. We tend to just be awake to ego or identified with ego. And so we can play this game of feeling, just feeling into our spiritual experience in every moment, feeling into our perspective in every moment. And so again, let's look, what does that actually look like? So just a fun question that I played with as I was waking up, practical question was, do I feel open? Is my consciousness open? Because the lens is the aperture of my consciousness. Is it open and is it vast? Is it connected to space in every moment, the feeling, the direct experience of space? And so I would walk around, a little bit nutty, but as spiritual people, we're all a little bit nutty. And I'd walk around with this question in my head: is the space here? Is peace here? Is silence here? And it became a fun question because maybe right before I asked the question, I was, just lost in my egoic mind, maybe lost in the role, say, for example, of being a father, being a, it's hard to come up with things that I am, being a framer, let's say that, like someone who is a carpenter. I did so much framing work for my teacher. And so it's like, am I a framer? Or am I this spaciousness? And I just happened to have a nail gun in my hand. And so I played with this question so much, that many years ago when I first woke up, I was actually just living right down the road. And I can remember it was this time of year, it's getting near winter. And I had my chainsaw out, and I was in the backyard. I was just, bucking up some, an old dead tree. And if you've been around a chainsaw, I'm sure most people have heard a chainsaw. It is the loudest piece of machinery that a human being can yield. The only thing really louder is a concrete saw. And those are piercing loud, but a chainsaw, it's a loud thing. It's loud, it's smoky, it's crazy dangerous. And me, I yield a chainsaw a little bit like a cowboy. And by that, I mean, in dangerous fashion. I'm not Mr. Safety with a chainsaw because I've used it a bunch. And so I'm throwing this thing around and, kicking logs, bucking them up, and there's smoke, and a chainsaw, it has it has all the smoke coming off the motor because it's it tends to be a real dirty motor in a chainsaw. But also on the chain itself, it has this stuff called bar oil. So like when you're letting it rip, oil is flying off the chain. So you just get covered in oil. It's a real messy thing. So I just want you to imagine, I'm just trying to paint the picture here. This would normally be a situation, would be high stress, or just like an intense amount of just masculine, and I don't know what to call this, redneck hillbilly get her done energy. It's not spiritual energy. But I can remember working this chainsaw this one year. And I had been asking this question, is the space here? I had been asking it so much that eventually the realization of it just became perfect. And I was laughing almost out loud, working this chainsaw and like, bar oil just all over me, all over my boots, all over you get it on like the thighs of your jeans, and smoke. And probably like, one of the most unspiritual things. And there was just this supreme quietude, this immense silence, this nurturing energy holding me. And it really made me smile. It really made me smile. And after that, I really like to test, can I know myself as this space, whatever it is that I'm doing, whatever it is that I'm doing. I mean, one of my teachers, Adya, he played the same game, but he went and just looked around his house. And I think that like the funny thing he looked at, because he really wanted to test it, is he went and he looked at a toilet. It's like, is the toilet, is this peace also? Is this spaciousness also? And he saw that in a toilet, and I thought it's the same kind of dance, because the thing that we want here in our living realization is to live the realization on retreat or during satsang, or in a solo hike by yourself for an hour or whatever. It's like, that's very easy, very easy. If you're at hot yoga class, maybe it's really easy. But is the realization lived? Like, can you experience the truth directly in times of great difficulty, great stress? The other day, we were beginning our journey across the country. I was driving a big moving van, the biggest moving van that they will rent you, and with a trailer behind it, so pulling a car. And my wife was behind me, and she broke down. And so we got ourselves in this situation where it's like, oh no, we were in a disaster. And I had to tow everything back home and go back and regroup. And we had a moving van and pulling a car, and then my wife in a car, and 2 dogs and my child, and it was a ridiculous moment in history. And was God there? Absolutely. Was peace there? Absolutely. Was radiance there? Absolutely. And was there some human disaster? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's this willingness to smile. It's this willingness to be flexible. It's a willingness to go with the flow. And like, we're kind of stuck on the road. And my wife said, like, what are we going to do here? I said, I don't know what to do. And yet there was peace with, I don't know. I think it's very rare when I don't know what the right thing to do is, but at some point we made a decision, and spent like a whole day driving. I was in a sense wasted, but there's trust here that this is part of the plan, that even disaster is part of the plan. Even disaster is part of the plan. And sometimes we need to really step back to see the big picture, to see that this is part of the plan. Like, I smile at my life right now that, I only lived in South Carolina for 6 months before I ended up back to Colorado, and not necessarily by my choice, but when one is open, when one is flexible, we tend to go with the flow. Tend to go with the flow of things. And now that I'm back here, it feels great. I mean, it feels great to be back here again. But of course, I'm going to miss, the old home, and I have to go back there and, handle a couple situations. So I'm going to be doing some more traveling here in the next little bit. So in order to live one's realization, it's important, it's necessary that you stay connected to your direct experience. The direct experience of your spiritual nature. So the easiest way to do that is just to ask this question, what am I feeling now? What am I feeling? And the easiest thing the easiest place to respond from is from like an egoic perspective of, oh, I feel good, or I feel bad, or I'm happy, I'm sad. Basically we're just acknowledging our emotions. But if we step back further from that, say, what am I feeling? What am I experiencing directly in my spiritual nature? See, here's where the shift in identification is. We're shifting out of ego and into our spiritual nature if you want to be awake. And so at any moment, I challenge you, I invite you to know exactly how you are spiritually. In any moment, it's like that. Like if anyone asked you, my teacher, he used to just do this all the time. I think he probably asked me this a million times. What's your experience right now? Whether I was on a roof shoveling snow, whether I was under his home, like fixing plumbing pipes, or like it's here in Colorado, it gets cold in the winter, pipes break, and again, disasters happen in the cold and the snow and the freezing. They say, like, what's the experience of your consciousness, Craig, right now? When you're in the crawl space of a house and there's that pink fiberglass insulation draping down across your forehead, maybe in your neck, maybe it's getting in your eyeballs. What is your experience now? Again, like he could ask me all day long in the temple, and that was easy. Like that was quite easy to answer. But what is your experience? In a moment of stress. And again, it's easy to acknowledge stress is here. What's here that's beyond stress? What's here that's witnessing the stress? And can you witness the witness? Can you be aware of that which is aware? Can you be aware of your heart and your Hara? The depth of what you are. Again, whether it's a moment of disaster, a moment of peace. But the beautiful thing about when we do this practice, we're really inquiring into what is your direct experience when you're in hell. Is it helps something greater, something deeper than ego, something deeper than the fight or flight response to wake up in you. And you begin to realize that you have a choice. You have a choice. from which place to live. And sometimes, we're just completely overwhelmed by stress, and that's part of life here on planet Earth. And again, that's not a moment to judge yourself. That's a moment to forgive yourself, to meet yourself with love and kindness. I watched a horrific movie last night. I couldn't even finish it. It was so horrific. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's one of the top movies right now on, I think it was Netflix. It's All Quiet on the Western Front. And as a kid, I grew up in a military family. I actually grew up just watching army movies from like a young age. And it's just in my family dynamic. Like that was kind of the thing we did. And it's funny because like my daughter, she's 8, and she doesn't even know what a war is. She doesn't really even know what a gun is. Like what violence is. It's crazy. Just the different ways we grow up. But so I grew up in this military family, and like so like as a kid, like we'd be on the army base, we'd be crawling on tanks and crawling in helicopters and all that kind of stuff. But at one point, my father asked me if I wanted to go to Europe with him and to visit some of these battlefields in Europe. And like my dad, he was a real history buff, and I loved him, but we always had a tough relationship. And there was just something in me that said, yeah, sure, I'll go, Dad. And it's just like this moment of healing for me just to go and be with him. And we went basically to where all those trenches were in World War I. And it's the border of France and Germany. And to this day, like if you walk out in the fields, you can still see the indentations of where the trenches were, where all these men died. I think in one day, the British, they lost 58,000 soldiers. And one day, I want you to just like think about that. Like that's how many people the US lost in 15 years of war in Vietnam. So there's just like this horrific situation for these young soldiers. And I can remember us watching the movie last night, and it's about a German soldier. And he was kind of shell-shocked, just in these trenches, and just seeing bodies ever, just like the most horrific scenes ever. And at some point, he was just like curled up in the fetal position, just covered in mud, just crying, like, I want my mommy, I want my mommy, I want my mommy. And it's like heartbreaking to see that amount of pain. And I don't want to get too much into it, but in different incarnations, I was among some of those soldiers. It's just a horrific thing for anyone to live through. But I was really, just feeling into that young man. There's probably tens of thousands of young men who had that same thought, the same tears. I want my mommy. Where the nervous system is just so utterly traumatized. That we want our mommy. It's like if we look at that, like, what is that? Like, what is mommy? What is the energy of mommy? And of course, we think of like this warmth and being held and being nurtured. And some of us, we didn't have that great a mom. So maybe that doesn't click for us, but like on an ultimate level, this is something we can be plugged into, the energy of the Divine Mother, this nurturing, healing, holding support. And whether it's coming down from heaven and you are connected to this, whether it's coming up from earth and you are connected to this. This is the thing that supports us when we go through disaster. And so again, focusing on this question, it's like, what does it mean to live our realization? Like sometimes the realization is, I am a child of God. And therefore, as a child of God, I am connected. Literally, I have and the umbilical cord of grace. I am connected to the Divine Mother. In our heavenly form, I'm connected to the Divine Mother in the earthly form. I am connected to this directly. And so this is something that's available to us if we are open in our experience, if we know our experience, if we are trained in this. And by trained, we just have just a gentle focus here to open this door, to open the door of the crown, to open the door of the bottom, to open the door of the feet, and to welcome this energy of being held. And again, like all things experientially, the more you open consistently, the more you begin to realize in a non-dual way that the Mother and you are one. The earth and you are one. Life and you are one. Life and you are one. It's quite interesting when I was, in these fields where the trench warfare was in France. About the Battle of the Somme was, I believe, the name of this area, or just one of the great areas of this trench warfare. Anything, any experience, pain, difficulty, hell, even like a horrific experience of hell. A trench warfare doesn't get much greater hell than that. Like when I was there, it was it was so crazy. It sounds just nuts to say this, but now those fields are just beautiful rolling hills with little divots in it where the trenches were, and some craters where some of the big massive bombs went off. And I mean, you have to just think human beings were gassing each other with chemical warfare. It's like that kind of horrific. Like there was just mass graves just everywhere in that area. And yet this day, if you walk in those fields, it's just these beautiful fields. And probably right now have this wonderful autumn color to it. Of course, as a human, as an egoic human being in that moment, it's like, this is absolute hell. But anything given time will return to peace. Will return to peace. And there's all these moments, in the film where these soldiers, where you see them just kind of looking up at the sky, and the big sky above them, whether it's the daylight or the evening, the middle of the night when they'd shoot off these flares, and you'd see the spaciousness is there, the peace is there, the silence is there. And yet as human beings, like sometimes we get so involved in our egoic nature, so lost in it, that we turn to violence. And we turn to violence. And it's quite unfortunate that this is the stage of evolution that us humans are at. But as soon as you step out of egoic conditioning and you step directly into your divinity, it's like taking this, like a quantum leap. Evolutionary for yourself, for the planet, for humanity. You leap into a place of love, of truth, of strength, of space, of peace. You open into this whole different world. It's entirely different realm. If you like. And so anyways, I see a couple of hands raised, but let me do this because someone wrote in a question, and this actually piggybacks onto what I was speaking about here. So this person is in Tiruvannamalai. That's where Ramana Maharshi lived, where Yogi Ram lived as well. A lot of great saints and sages have lived in Tiru. Okay. 3 years ago, I realized the true nature of myself, having an experience that is beyond. From there, I've lived and been through a lot of things. The experience of heightened awareness lasted for some months and progressively diminished. And so this is what I encourage everyone. Like if you step into this heightened state of awareness, you make that permanent through valuing it, through honoring it, through giving it your time. If you start to feel it fade, I encourage you to ask why. Or what thought is it that I'm believing that's beginning to veil this space or take up this space or pollute this space? From then I returned to normal, like being a normal human being, but knowing the illusionary nature of it. So these years, there's been a readjustment of my entire being and a lot of emotions coming up for periods of really hard times and spontaneous movements, pressures. Later, I came to see that these are called kriyas. I experienced a lot of kriyas, mostly in the face muscle that stretches the tongue, and movements in the stomach area as pain, and discomfort, uneasiness these weeks. It's ever changing. The other day, two guys, I like this, two guys in Tiru told me that for this process of the kriyas and the kundalini to balance, it's crucial that I practice some form of kriya yoga or some other type of yoga may be helpful. I don't know. I usually let things fall into place, and I'm asking for some insight into the matter. Sometimes it's hard to find support as it's a rare thing. Yeah. So someone else came to me this week with the same question. They tried kriya yoga, and it made the kriyas more intense. It made it so they were having trouble sleeping. It just gave them too much energy. And so kriya yoga is not always the answer if we have a lot of kundalini energy flowing through us. And sometimes we need to walk away from asana yoga. Sometimes it's too much. But generally speaking, without meeting with you individually, I say yin yoga is best. light, gentle hatha yoga can be helpful. I went to hot yoga this morning, and it's been a long time since I've been to hot yoga, but I woke up in a freezing cold place and I wanted to heat my body up. And so I said, well, maybe I'll go to hot yoga. And it really fired up my kundalini. It made a lot of it. It really intensified it. Now, for me, most of the time, the kundalini is just flowing in the background, unconstricted. And, it feels lovely and there's no problem. But if I do really intense yoga, like a power yoga, which I was doing this morning, sometimes pours a little gas on that fire. And so, this is really a question of energy mastery. And this comes about you playing with it, you seeing what works best for you. Sometimes something really gentle like Tai Chi can be helpful. Qigong, again, sometimes that makes it worse. The big thing is, I always invite people to look and see what are the actual energetic blockages. So in the muscles of the face or the muscles of the stomach, these are places we repress emotion. And so I encourage you to look psychologically and see, is there something here that's unhealed, unresolved? Is there something wanting to be loved, wanting to be seen, wanting to be expressed? And normally this is what needs to be addressed first. And again, when we're willing to look at what's failing us, what's causing blockages in the 7 chakra centers, this question supports the unveiling of your divine nature, which will take you back to what you initially experienced, this awakened state of consciousness. So to me, that's ultimately what this path is about, is getting back to this awakened state of consciousness and not living just purely from a human state of consciousness. And so I hope that was helpful. I hope that makes sense. But of course, if you want, like the best support is to meet in person, where we meet one-on-one. We can, look at your life and what actually is going on with you, because it's always specific to you and your karma, what's happening in your. The great question, if our consciousness is veiled, is, well, what am I believing that's not true? What are the parts of myself that I'm not loving, or that I'm not embracing, that I'm not including? What's here that I'm unwilling to see? What's here that I'm unwilling to experience? What's here that I'm hiding from? What great truths are within me that want to come forward, but I am actively ignoring them? These are helpful questions, to straighten all this out, to bring you back in alignment with your realization. Okay. All right. Let's see, 2 questions here. Let's see. I'm going to call on the first one. Maybe you can help me with your name. It looks like Patrizia. Are you here? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, is it Melanie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Are you on someone else's computer, huh?
No, I'm playing around with accustoming to my second name.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did I say it right?
I don't know in English. I mean, with a C, it would be Patricia. With
Okay. Well, you tell me how to say it.
Patrizia in German and Patrizia in Italian.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, so what's your question this evening?
I don't have so much of a question. I would rather like to share something.
Yeah, please.
So what has become very important to me the past couple of weeks, and I didn't have much of a choice, is to become very, very raw and honest.
Yes.
Not just towards myself, but also making a step towards becoming transparent towards basically everyone I meet in the public. I started doing a couple of videos, which moved me forward quite a bit. And yeah, I just wanted to share that the past 7 years, I got to know what hell is.
Yeah.
Like absolute hell.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been more contrasting to what went on before. And had I known before, I would have signed off.
Yeah.
And I've been in touch with many, many people, especially in the past couple of months, who were telling me their stories. And I was seeing, wow, this is so universal. And currently on the planet, so many people are unrooting like really deep shit.
Yeah.
And I know now what violence is.
Yeah.
And like real violence, and that it can literally almost bring you to death, like physical death. And I had multiple times in 7 years where I felt ready to die and felt like, okay, checking out, not doing this anymore.
Yes.
And I'm still here, and life always showed me very clearly. I'm lucky that I'm very, very connected to synchronicities, and like crazy synchronicities are happening for me that are so unlikely. And life is showing me parallel that I must follow my dream. I had within 2 weeks, I had crazy synchronicities here in town on the train, and like within I think 6 days, I met 4 people that were from Colorado and from British Columbia, and this was insane. Like I was just sitting there and I couldn't believe it because it was so unlikely. One woman was from Denver, another guy was from Vancouver, another one was from Fort Collins, and the last one just told me about having been in Colorado, I don't know where. And that has been happening for me for many years now. And basically almost everything that happened in the past years has contributed to beliefs that had been, I mean, you once said that in a session, that had been left untouched by the 1.5 years of just brilliance.
Yes.
And I knew all the time they're coming up to be released. And what my mistake was, I got stuck on them via repression and by identifying with them, and not just like in the mind. It's like a somatic thing that was what made it difficult for me. And it was really interesting that the outside world mirrored back to me beliefs about you are unworthy, you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, stress yourself out more, you need to work your way to love, you like abandonment stuff, boundary crossing, confusing me where I doubt my own intuition, and like repetitions of dynamics that I knew from my home. And I couldn't believe it. Sometimes I even heard the same sentences with the same looks on faces. And I felt like this is not happening.
Or it's a matrix, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also felt like much of that stuff was not even mine. I felt like
Yeah.
much of that stuff is also ancestral. And I've
Yeah.
had the issue my whole life that I felt so much of the stuff I'm carrying has nothing to do with me.
Right.
And like, it might not seem like that sometimes, that like I know that have such an empathic nature, and it's really, really hard for me learning how to navigate that, because I cannot shut off that I feel people's energy, people's body. I don't know, sometimes I feel organs and the different centers and what they're
Yeah.
communicating. um and I knew throughout all this time, throughout all the 7 years, that life is giving me a mix of, look, this is what is still in you. Is that really true? I'm
Yeah.
sending you people who must have a resonance to that, and to tell you that you deserve, I don't know, boundary violations, intimidations, humiliations, yelling, I don't know, put downs, basically everything that I ever believed while knowing it's not true. And at the same time, life showed me every day, and reminded me of my not only of my beauty,
Yes.
but of my dream. And it's so unlikely where I'm now. I can say that I have really, I could never have believed that I would land at such a place. And I know that nothing of what I've been told of that shit is true.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Good.
My body knows so well.
Good.
And the signs have been so clear for years that basically my time here is not yet, but is coming to an end in Germany. I don't belong here anymore. And whenever I see pictures of mountains, and especially water and forest around, it's like I feel like home.
Yeah. Then you have to listen.
Yes. And
Yeah. You have to
also,
listen.
I know, and also with um my what was been shown to me, what I'm here for, to bring to this planet, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
And the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I got like an influx of love of people who reflected back to me how much I'm needed here, and how beautiful and valuable I actually am, and I needed that.
Yes.
And looked into the mirror, and I was like, wow, I've been looking at myself through the eyes of other people for years. And
Yeah.
it
And
made
other
me
people
feel,
who were broken.
yeah, some of them didn't seem like that on the
Yeah.
surface.
Yeah.
And I really looked at myself through the eyes of the people. And I recognized it's not true. It's
Yeah.
just
Good.
not true. It's not true.
Good.
It's not true.
Well, this will be
And
big for you. This next year will be very big for you. And I can feel it in you. I can feel it in your soul that you're turning the ship around. You're claiming your divinity. And that's what this
and
path is about. That's what this life is about for you to claim your truth, for you to live your truth,
I
for
know.
you to no longer allow the past and what people in your past told you or did to you define you. You live from
And
your heart.
boy, it was so lonely, so incredibly lonely
Yeah.
and isolated. Um, and for me, again, and that was always my motivation, in the darkest of hours, I was saying to myself, and when I get through this,
Yeah.
nothing will scare me. And
Yeah.
I will be the one who can sit with people and who will
Yeah.
have a compassion that is not scared of anything.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
because I can say I've been there, I know that,
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so to make that firm for myself. So my absolute life dream, I've known it for years, is to either live in Colorado or in British Columbia. Both
And
places are
they're both wonderful places.
yeah,
Yeah.
both places are so close to my heart. I've never been in one of them, but I just
Yeah.
know. I just
Yeah.
know. And the past, I would say, through maybe 3 years. I think I started when I had the first session with you around that time. Colorado came more to the forefront, and more and more and more and more and more. And like in the recent time, that was so insanely intense. Just 3 days ago, I was sitting in front of a grocery store, of a organic store. It was closed. It was evening. No one was there. I was sitting there, looking at my phone. A guy came with his bike, and we got into a conversation. And after 10 minutes, I was just randomly looking um, at his bike, and on the bike in fat letters was Colorado. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is not really true. Like,
And there it is. It's
again,
calling to you. It's calling to
it's
you.
like, yeah, and I'm not making that up. And yeah, so I know I'm supposed to live there very, very close to nature, if not in nature, in basically the opposite of what I'm in now. And I also sense that only once I'm there, I can fully let go.
Yeah.
Mm, and also, what has come up for me very, very strongly the past year, um, I have been a wanderer for a long, long time. And I recognized that it is time for me to really settle,
Yeah. What
into
and
home.
for a lot of people, they can't, fully heal
Yes,
until they find their home, until they're held by the earth itself, until they're connected
yes,
to their truth. And it's one of the
yes,
things that the body does is our body, and like the trauma body won't fully let go until it's in a place where it actually feels is home.
correct.
And it
Yeah,
feels plugged in. It feels there's a safety here, there's a depth here.
yeah,
There's just this sense of this is where I belong. This is my truth.
right,
And
right.
so this is beautiful. Well, I look forward to you letting us know like how
Yeah, it
it
will be
goes.
quite a
Yeah, it'll be
journey until then.
quite a journey. And one of the things I do with God is, I challenge God. Like if I start seeing these synchronicities popping up, all over the place, and if my mind doesn't know like how this is going to work out, I mean, the mind never really knows, then I challenge God. I say, okay, you keep showing me something. You
Mhm.
keep showing me this. And so then, God, it's your job to make it happen. You are
Yeah,
the doer. You show me the way.
yeah,
You are the doer. You show me the way. You lead me. You guide me. You bring it all into place. And I don't want any more just words. I want you to show me with action how this works out. You lead me. You guide me. You take me to this great truth. And you prove to me that this is your world, God.
yeah.
Your world. Your world.
Yeah, yeah, one of the things that kept up to kept up coming up too was that there were many, 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 many circumstances where I felt I was running against a roadblock, and as if something would interfere with that. And I felt like, okay, everyone is moving forward, just
Yeah.
not me. And as if I wouldn't belong, and
Yeah.
as if like literally being kicked out of the tribe.
Yeah.
And being completely misplaced where I
Yeah.
am, and the people here not being able to relate to
Yeah.
me saying,
Well,
well, I
and
don't
this is
belong here.
something, yeah, this is something I really want you to work with. You saying, I am in the tribe. I am seen. I am heard. I am loved. I am supported. And you walking in the direction of that, but you simultaneously knowing this. So you walking in the direction of this, and you simultaneously knowing this. And
Yeah,
so
that's
this
also
is,
why I made the promise to myself to now be here basically almost every Sunday. In the beginning, I was
yeah,
there just infrequently, and for several reasons, I felt like, oh no, I don't know, I'm not part of this, and they
yeah,
all are, but I'm not.
yeah,
That I was so stuck on unworthiness that was being mirrored back to me that time and again, time and again, time and again. And I'm just recognizing, no, I'm not less than.
yeah,
I'm not less than. I'm awesome.
yeah. Are you a child
And
of God?
of course I
Of
am.
course. Of course. Of course you are. And so we go forward knowing this. So we go forward knowing this. Well, thank you so much for coming forward and sharing. Yeah, so much love to you. And we'll
Thank
see.
you.
We'll see
You
what the
too.
future holds. We'll
Yeah.
see what the future holds. All right. Yeah, so exciting. And life is like this often where, we go through hell, and whenever we're in hell, whenever we're disconnected from the truth, it feels like so lonely. As soon as you're disconnected from the truth, like the felt experience of that is loneliness. And as soon as you come into the truth, the felt experience is, I'm at home. I'm at home. And so beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. It's getting a little late here. Let's hear from Catherine here. Catherine, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are,
Um,
Catherine. Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Wow, this that sounds really deep. So I guess my question is about, I guess, how do you stay open when it's getting really intense, and like, because um, my brother called me last week, and I'm gonna see him for the first time in 9 years, and we're gonna go get my dad, who I haven't seen in 8 years because his health is not doing great, and like
Yeah.
move him to West Virginia with my brother because amazingly, but like the grace of God, like my brother came into this money, and so like now we can take care of my dad, and like, and I've been having conversations with him kind of about what you were speaking about just trauma. Like his dad, my grandfather, was this commander, really big time commander in World War II and the Korean
Yeah.
War, and he like flew planes like so close to the ground, like grenades bounced off the planes.
Wow.
So he was like a real gangster, for like when it came to that. Anyway, he came home with a shitload of PTSD, of course, after 2 wars of that.
Yeah.
And it just explains so much to like why am I dedicating my whole life to like studying trauma, and like, oh, it's because my family was just like totally shut down by it, and like my dad is so sick because he just didn't get love,
Yeah.
like from because my grandma, his mom, was CIA, so like my whole family was just about talking about like the heaviest stuff all the time, and that
Yeah.
was my whole childhood. It was just
Yeah. And
like,
they didn't have the training, and, especially coming out of the world wars of the last century,
yeah,
often like what families do, and this happened in my family, is you come back from the war, and like we don't talk about our feelings. We drink them, we drink them away, or we just shut up and we work. And we shut up and we work in order to, get an income, build the house, to try to support the kids, but there's no real room for the kids to be heard or seen or acknowledged. And so again, like all this trauma of the last century has just been passed on. And so with us now, I mean, we may not think of it as a luxury, but like this is like one of the first times in history when we have the luxury to stop and ask, what am I feeling? And for most of us, it's not like, oh, I'm feeling joy and greatness and happiness. It's like, oh my God, I'm feeling all this repressed, ancestral rage or trauma or PTSD. And, like I have all my father's PTSD that it just was given to me, and, and then his father's and the father before. And it's like, starvation, famine, time in orphanages, being in wars. It's just, and so we, again, have the luxury now, I'm going to use this word, the privilege of, okay, like we get to deal with all of this. And we can look at that as a curse. We can look at it as a great burden, or we can look at it, the same way that Christ looked at it, or Bodhisattva looks at it, and say, okay, it's like, basically there's work here. There's pain here. How do I respond to pain? I respond with love. And so you started, I think, with the question of like, how do I respond to this? Like when things are so hard, like if we just break it down to a practical step, it's the willingness to feel. It's the willingness to open your throat chakra and just feel what's lower than the throat on the other side of the throat. So you feel into your heart. And like, in regards to if you have a father you haven't seen and a brother you haven't seen, I'm certain there's great sadness. And so it's the willingness to feel the sadness. Now, I'll tell you the mistake that most everyone does, and I've been guilty of this, especially when I was young, is we have a situation, there's a lot of feeling in us, and we just are like, we just kind of ignore the feeling. We jump into the situation and we get in the situation. And as soon as we're with family, we explode. It's just like, we just explode. And everyone in the family explodes. And it's like, well, why is that? Like, what is an explosion? An explosion is basically the throat chakra opening all of a sudden in a very unskillful way. And I'm not even saying an explosion is bad or wrong. Sometimes an explosion is all we got. It's just like we all get together at Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever the holiday is, and it all comes out. But again, just like sometimes wars happen, and it's just part of life on planet Earth. Like sometimes these emotional explosions happen. But because we're spiritual and we're mindful and we have these big hearts, we can ask, okay, well, what's a better way? A better way is for us to have the explosion in the comfort of our own home before we're engaged with any of the family members. And so if there's, sadness or angst or fear or whatever in regards to brother or father, we let it come forward. So in a time of meditation, in a time of inquiry, in a time of contemplation, and we just let it flow. We let it flow. We let it empty out of us. We allow ourselves to be volcanic, energetically. And I even had this, like this morning, I went to hot yoga, and heck, I'd been in a moving truck for 3 days. And again, I drove through a snowstorm, car broke down. Like it was just, we had all kinds of disasters. Had to pack up a whole house. Like I wasn't like ready to move all of a sudden. But again, my wife got this job and I really wanted to support her, and she was so excited. So I was like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. And I just overdid it with my body. And so when I woke up this morning, I said, oh yeah, got an extra hour when I go to hot yoga. And as soon as I put my head down in child's pose, it's like just little bits of sadness just started emptying out of me. Tension started emptying out of me. Body started shaking. And you just let it flow. And the thing about this path is it's a path of openness. It's a path of willingness to feel and experience. What's really helpful is if we're willing to feel everything, but not believe the thoughts that go with the feelings. So often, like the thoughts that go with the feeling, like say if there's a family member that we have anger towards, or whatever, if we haven't talked to someone in 8 years, there's a good chance like there's a door closed in us or a door closed in them. There's a feeling of betrayal or anger or something. And so I encourage you to feel the emotion, but don't believe the thought that it's his fault. He should have called me. This wasn't fair, or whatever it was, like not to go there, but rather to validate this hurts, this pain and this division within my family. It hurts. Just acknowledging it hurts. Not getting caught up in the story or the details of who said what, who did what. He said, she said, all that kind of, they said this, they said that, like that game. But rather just the willingness to feel, to open, to experience. And just to let the experience move through you, let the emotion move through. Let whatever's here move through you and empty out. And the beautiful thing is once we allow it to fully empty out of us, and we feel empty, then we go and we see the person. We're like, hey, look at you. Look at you. We actually see them. We actually hear them. We receive them. And simultaneously, we're receiving ourselves. And sometimes we empty out, but then when we see them, like more stuff comes forward. And so, again, like, can we receive them and can we receive ourselves? And the biggest thing here is an open throat, but with deep, full belly breaths. Just an open throat chakra with deep, full belly breaths. When the throat is open and when we're breathing deeply and fully in the belly and doing like big, long exhales, what will happen is whatever it is that's upsetting us or disturbing us will begin to empty out on the exhale. And then it doesn't have to come out in, you did this and it's been too long and it's not fair, or I don't like the way you talk to me, or whatever it is that people do in families. It's everyone has their dance, but like we don't have to have that dance. But in order for that dance to resolve, we have to give ourselves the love that we want the other person to do. Like we always want the other person to change. We want them to love us, see us, hear us a certain way. But if we're going to be a Buddha, we have to do that for ourselves. So we hear ourselves the way we want our father to hear us, where we want our mother to hear. So we hear ourselves from a place of strength, like the energy, like say the Divine Father. We hear ourselves from this place of great compassion, love, forgiveness, kindness, tenderness. That's the energy of the Divine Mother. Now, mom and dad always drop the ball. Sister, brother always drop the ball. And so can we love ourselves the way we're demanding that the family loves us? Because the family will let us down. And we've seen this time and time again. Like you said, family has way too much trauma. Way too much trauma. And so it's just a great question is, can I be the adult in the room? Can I be Christ consciousness in the room? Can I be the Buddha in the room? Can I be the open heart in the room? And sometimes like I do this with like all my girls, but like my oldest daughter gives me a really hard time lately. And so sometimes I just allow myself, just allow her to use me as a punching bag. And I'm just like, okay, I love you so much. You're the worst dad ever. You're this, you're that. She doesn't really say those things, but she gives me that kind of feeling. those kind of projections that I'm not who she wants me to be. And so it's just like, I just love you, and I'll hear you, and I'll let you complain, and I'll receive it all. And I won't argue with it. I won't fight with it, because there's space here. But if there's no space within me, if I'm full of my own trauma and I haven't met it with love, then chances are we're going to get together and we're all just going to be firecrackers, just, making each other explode. Yeah. So I hope there was something helpful there for you.
Yeah, I guess the thing I don't feel a lot of rage or I mean, I feel incredible amount of sadness, but I mostly feel like guilt that I couldn't help my dad.
Yeah. Well, whose job is it to help Dad?
His dad's, but he couldn't.
Yeah. So I want you to take a step further back than his dad. Who's his true dad?
God.
God. God. God. So it's God's job to help his children. Yeah. And it's good to remember that God is the father, God is the mother. As if there's a problem, then that's God's problem. But if you take that on, if you take it on as your responsibility to heal your father, you're going to be out of alignment with truth, and you're going to suffer greatly. And there's nothing wrong with like praying for your father and wishing him, to connect more fully with his heart, with love, with his strength, with healing. Like I pray for people all day long, but I know at the end of the day, the responsibility lies in God, and it lies in them, but not me. Not me. God's the healer. God's the doer. And God is, also, God lives in your father, through your father. But just, your father has a human body, has a human mind, a human emotional nature. And that perhaps, even though it's difficult, I hate to say this, but, it's like often we need to go through whatever suffering we're going through. It helps us to grow. It helps us to grow. And we may not see that. We may not understand it. It may not make any sense. I mean, at the end of the day, this is an evolutionary world. And so, like, we're all, even if what I just said wasn't true, like, we're all just going to be forced to grow. And the more painful it gets, often the quicker we wake up. Sometimes if things are too easy, we just coast for too long. But my dear, it's not your responsibility. And, sometimes we have an identity that says it's my job to heal, it's my job to fix, because you have a big heart. And while that is a beautiful thought, it's just not the truth. I suffered from this greatly with my own children, where I thought, well, it's my job to heal them, fix them, to protect them in every moment. And I couldn't. I couldn't protect my kids in every moment, couldn't heal them in every way. Like, they have to live their own life. And their life is between them and God. And really, again, like this, my teacher used to say this, but it made me so mad, that my children didn't belong to me, they belonged to God. I said, no, they belong to me. Like, it's my job. It's like, no, they belong to God, and it's God's job. My job to do my best, of course. But it's God's job to give them the life that they need. And that's hard. Like, this is one of those really hard truths. And some of us we'd rather hang on to guilt because it like at least it connects us to some kind of form of egoic control, versus letting go of that and realizing, oh, like we live in a universe where we don't have control. And that can lead into like nihilism and some really bizarre states of consciousness that are unhelpful. If we step back with the energy of trust that this is God's world. And so in a sense, like this is a totally out of control world from the perspective of ego. But this world is totally in control. And that it's a manifestation of God's will. And we may disagree with God's will. We may not understand it. You know, in the Christian tradition, often this is like the mystery of faith. Like, this is God's world. God is the doer. And I don't understand it, but I have faith in this great mystery. Even if this mystery includes sickness, old age, and death, and violence, and dare I say, war and horrific things as well. For some reason, God is allowing that. And even though I disagree with it, it's like we try to disagree with God. We just immediately come outside of the truth. And so I encourage you to, play with just detaching from the guilt, feeling what's under the guilt, like whether it's powerlessness or like a little girl who really loves her father and is trying to help him. And can you be there for her? Can you love her? And then in a real human way, can you invite God the Father and God the Mother to hold you, like the adult you, the child you, to hold your adult father and the child within him? Can you invite God to hold your mother and your brother, to hold the whole family? And then, gosh, if we're doing that, like to hold the whole earth, just like hold all of us. And a lot of times, like when I look out, like when I saw that movie last night, I had to turn off. I was like, God, I said, God, what the hell's going on here? I need you to come here. I need you to hold us. We can do better. Like, will you be with us? Will you give us the strength to love and grow? Will you come into those I really struggle with? Will you come into my enemies? Those I love, those I don't love. Will you come into all of us here? All of us. I think there's a big political thing going on here in the next couple of days. It's like, can you be with all the candidates, God, all the parties, all of us? Like, we all need your love. We all need your truth. We all need your strength. We all need your clarity and wisdom. We all need it. And so this is one of the ways of living in realization is you humbly acknowledge there's a human here who gets confused, who doesn't know, who trips over guilt. And God, I need you. I need something higher. We call upon that which is higher to live through us, to act through us, to love through us. And so anyways, so good to be with you, Catherine. Yeah, much love. Yeah, of course. Looking at the time, I'm going to call it a night. I apologize if I didn't get to your questions. Some were emailed in. I apologize that I missed some of those. And just to recap the schedule, Wednesday the 9th, meditation is going to be at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Kundalini group, Wednesday the 9th, is going to be at 10 a.m. Starting on Sunday the 13th, Kundalini group will be at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Satsang at 7 p.m. Mountain. Meditation 7 p.m. Mountain. I really apologize for those of you who I'm disrupting your schedule. I hope you can still join us. So much love to each of you. My heart is with you all. Good night, everyone. See you soon.